Well, hello, my lovelies. It's Janet Perez with the Painted Saguaro coming to you with the Paint Couture paint page to show you how I created the look on both this nightstand and matching dresser. I created this look using all Paint Couture products mainly, along with an IOD transfer and some Annie Sloan wax. So stick around and I'm going to show you how to do this. First off, I used a raised stencil on the sides of both of these pieces, and because of the curved Bombay style shape of these, along with the odd camera angle, because this dresser is literally huge, it's 72 inches long, I wanted to show you how to create a raised stencil on this cabinet door. So I'm using the embossing medium from Paint Couture, and I'm just slathering some on to this stencil, which is, I believe it's a Redesign stencil by Katja. And putting it on here, I've taped the stencil down to the cabinet door after cleaning it completely. And I'm using a pastry scraper, a bowl scraper, but you can also, if you don't have one of those, you can use a credit card or a casino card or whatever you might have that's stiff and can scrape the product across the stencil. And you just want to make sure that you're getting good contact between the stencil and the surface of your wood to make sure that you're not getting any leakage. Honestly, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll use an Easy Tack adhesive spray, spraying the back of the stencil, letting it dry for a couple of seconds, and then pressing that down really firmly against the furniture piece or the board or whatever it is I'm stenciling. And that will give you great adhesion so that you don't have to worry about any small pieces of the stencil lifting as you're scraping your product across the stencil. So this embossing medium is fantastic for raised stencils. It spreads super great. It's just the right texture for creating a raised stencil. It takes about an hour to dry, and it is beautiful. Now, you'll see I didn't go all the way to the edges because I was just using this as a demo product, so please forgive me, but you'll see how beautiful that looks. And I'm just wiping off the edges because I got some over the top of the frame edge of this cabinet door. But this is my favorite stencil product for raised stencils I've ever used, ever. So now we're moving on to the dresser itself. This is a 9-drawer dresser. Like I said, it's absolutely massive. I've already primered it with the Primer Plus product by Paint Couture. And now I'm using Tuscan Sun, and I'm just applying it randomly over areas on the dresser. And I'm just going to show you the left side portion of this. I'm not going to show you the entire piece because I'm repeating this process over the entire dresser. I've already done the raised stenciling on the sides, and so you can just imagine that basically I'm doing this same look over the entire piece, okay? So now I'm using the color Coral Passion, which is one of the chalk style paint colors, and just kind of filling in some of the white primered areas with this color. And again, no rhyme or reason to this. I just want to sort of fill in the backdrop of this piece with these colors because they're going to peek through that finished blue finish that I'm doing. And now I'm adding Firelight, which is like an amazing orange color. It's so bright and vibrant. I love it. So as you can see, I've done the entire piece like I said I was going to do. And now I've grabbed my opal green. It's not a green so much as it is sort of a teal, a really dark teal blue, and it's my new favorite color. That is Peacock, which is slightly different than opal green. And then we've got vintage flare, which I'm going to use as sort of my highlight color in the center of the drawers and the center of the sides. So I'm starting off with that opal green, and I'm using a 50-50 mix of white vinegar and water and using it as sort of a wash. And what the vinegar water mix does is it helps kind of break down the consistency of the paint. So it doesn't act the same as just plain water, where plain water will make it drip more and give it a different consistency. I suggest if you've never tried vinegar water that you play with it a little bit and see the different results that you'll get with it. I'm adding the vintage flare in the center there. You can see that it's just slightly lighter. And again, vinegar water, washing it down, and you're going to start seeing the colors beneath wash through. And I love this effect that you get with the color over color that you're doing here, or that I'm doing here. So again, I'm just using 3 colors here. And really, if you just wanted to use the 2 colors, opal green and vintage flare would probably suffice. The peacock is just my 3rd color to add a little bit of contrast, but it's not necessary particularly. I just like it to add a little bit of extra interest. So you can see those colors coming through here. And I love the effect that I'm getting. Now I don't want drips, and that's why I'm going over it. And with this process, you really need to watch it pretty closely. You don't want to walk away after spritzing it, unless you like drips. I personally don't want drips. I just want that wash effect. So that's why I'm babysitting it heavily. If I get too much paint removed, I'll go back in and add some paint. If I don't have enough paint removed, I will go back in and make sure that I'm spraying it a little heavier. Here I'm cleaning the drawer edges off because you don't want water to pool on those drawer edges. And just keep working it until you, as the artist, are happy. As you can see, I've got a screwdriver to help me open the drawers because obviously I have the drawer pulls removed. And then I'm using my shop towel to clean up any drips that might be coming off of those drawer edges. But look at that effect. Isn't that amazing? It almost looks like an oil slick to me, which I think is totally cool. And again, I'm constantly working it. Now here I'm using just plain water out of my mister, simply because I don't want to move the paint too much. I just want to move it slightly, and that's why I picked up my mister bottle. Now see, I added a little bit more paint there because a little bit of the paint moved a bit too much. So again, you as the artist are absolutely able to determine exactly how much paint you want off or on, and it's entirely up to you how you want that piece to look. Those drips are coming off the drawers, and that's why I'm really watching the area between the drawer spaces. So I've got the entire piece done, and now it's time to place my IOD transfer. And I have it offset a little bit at first because I realized I wanted to center the transfer based on the middle drawers, not the outside drawers. So I had to redo it a little bit, but see, so I'm readjusting right here. But you want to make sure that you figure out your layout when you're using a transfer prior to applying it, because I've seen some people have some major oops, and these are not inexpensive. So you want to make sure that you don't waste your time and your money by not applying them correctly, because that's not worth your time or your investment. So here I've got the entire piece laid out according to how it's supposed to be laid out, and I'm starting on my first piece. Now I'll show you how I cut that in just a second, so bear with me. But basically, when you've got multiple drawers, you don't want to like stick the entire piece on there and try to lay it down. You want to cut it piece by piece, or at least I do, because otherwise you're going to have tears, you're going to have a lot of mistakes and oops. So I'm showing you here, first off, you can see how you can tell when the transfer is adhered, how it goes completely opaque on that sheet, and how easy it lays down onto the furniture piece. And I might also add that I sealed this piece with one coat of my flat top coat from Paint Couture prior to applying my transfer, because you always want to seal your piece before applying your transfer. So I forgot to mention that as well. So here I'm taping it down, leaving that gap for the drawer space. And I'm using a razor blade and cutting it, and cutting right through the tape. And I'm cutting all of the rest of the pieces for this now that I've got it laid out where I want it, making sure that I'm straight and I'm aligned, holding it down with my hand and cutting it off, okay? And then you want to just peel back one piece at a time, remove that backer paper, carefully place it back down, and start rubbing and applying it. And it goes on really easily, actually. These IOD transfers apply so quickly and so simply, and they adhere so easily. I love them. And I love this transfer. I think it's one of the most beautiful they've ever created, quite honestly. It is called Joie, Joie Des Des Roses by IOD, and it's beautiful. I'm pressing down in that, there's a little bit of a curve there you can see, and I want to get around that edge there so that it lays down properly and doesn't crack or break on me. And you will get some cracks, but that's natural and normal. I have never seen a transfer applied without any flaws, but that's part of the beauty of it. This is handmade art, you guys, and to experience those little flaws in the artwork or cracks, and if there's something that really major happens, you can absolutely take some acrylic paint or some of your chalk style paint or mineral paint and touch it up beautifully, and nobody will ever know the difference. As long as you seal it afterwards, you're golden. Now see, I'm rubbing over it with that transfer sheet afterwards just to make sure that it's adhered well and bonded, and there's the whole piece. So I did that cutting technique completely the same exact way, and the transfer is on. This is a massive transfer, and it took the entire transfer on this piece. So now what I'm doing is I'm using a buffing pad, and it's kind of an abrasive pad, and just kind of going over the whole thing and making sure that there's no edges sticking out. What it does is it sort of ages it a little tiny bit and make sure that everything is laid down. There's no bubbles in the transfer, and it's adhered well and ready for a top coat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal this with another top coat of my flat top coat from Paint Couture. After sealing it with my top coat, I'm going to add some Annie Sloan dark wax in the corners to just give it a little more age. Sorry about that. My camera went wonky on me for a second. So I'm just using a natural bristle brush and some of that Annie Sloan. And I didn't use a light wax or a clear wax underneath this because like I said, I sealed it with my top coat already. So when you've sealed with a top coat, you really don't need to use a clear wax beneath your dark wax. What I am doing, and you'll see it in a second, is I'm offloading my brush onto a piece of cardboard so that I'm not getting too much dark wax on my brush, which is kind of important to do regardless of whether you're using a clear wax beneath or a polyacrylic beneath your wax, your dark wax, when you're using it or applying a dark wax. And then I'm kind of buffing it out, and I'll let this sit for a few hours and then buff it even more so that it's completely buffed out and it doesn't feel odd to the touch. There you can see me offloading my brush onto that cardboard. And it's real important that you do that so you don't get any really heavy goobers of the dark wax onto your piece. But isn't this a beautiful transfer? And on those colors, those teal colors with the orange peaks popping through, with the oranges and the peachy florals of this piece, I think it's just absolutely lovely. So I'm doing sort of a vignette around the drawers of each drawer with this dark wax, and I do the entire piece this way, and I also do the sides with it. So now we're moving on to the hardware, and I boil the hardware in a 50-50 vinegar water mix for about 15 to 20 minutes. You can see I kind of stir it with a wooden spoon just to make sure that it's all getting boiled thoroughly. And then you want to let it cool for a little bit before you touch it, because obviously it's been in boiling water and it's really, really hot, so don't scald yourself. So I then let it set in my sink for about 10 minutes to let it cool. And if you want to utilize the hardware as is without adding any embellishment by adding color to it, at this point, what you would want to do is take some oxalic acid, like Barkeeper's Friend, and scrub it with a wire brush. But all I did was scrub it with a wire brush by itself because I was going to paint it. And what I did was I used some of my gold mine, some of my silver ice, and some of my bronze Luxe metallic paints and painted the hardware. I just kind of wanted a medley of metallic colors on this hardware to give it a little bit of interest. And I think it turned out beautifully. And as you saw on that smaller piece, I use a smaller paintbrush handle to hold on to the pieces when I'm painting them. So here I'm giving you two examples. You can use a stencil brush when you're stenciling, but that's a lot of work, especially on a big stencil like this. And this is the same stencil I used for the raised stencils on the side. But this would take me forever to do this entire top. So I'm going to show you, I pour some of this, this is the opal green paint. I pour some into a plate, and I use the cabinet door rollers on a 4-inch rolling handle, offload it onto another plate, paper plate, and just roll it on, and it goes so much faster. And there's your top. So that's super simple. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to mix some of my espresso paint couture paint along with some of my clear glazing gel, and I do about 2 tablespoons of my espresso paint in with about a half a cup of my glazing gel and maybe about a tablespoon of water, and I spread that on top. Once that gets spread, and I do this in smaller sections. I mean, this is, like I said, a massive dresser. So I did about half of the dresser at one step, and then spritzed it a little bit with some more water so that it didn't get set up too quickly, because even though it's glazing gel, it will, especially here in my house in the middle of summer, I live in the South, it will dry pretty quickly. And then I wipe it back with a rag. Typically you want to use a lint-free rag, but all of mine were in the laundry, so I used an old towel, which was fine. It didn't cause me any issues. But this just darkens up that orange, the firelight and the Tuscan yellow and the coral passion that I added to the top of the dresser, because it was just a little bit too bright and light, and I wanted to tone it down a little bit. So what this technique does is just soften those colors up a bit and create a more aesthetic look, I feel, on the top. So I'm really pleased with how this technique turns out as well. So you wipe that down, and then I sealed the top as well after the glaze dried. I allow glaze to always dry for at least 24 hours before I seal it. And then after it's dry, I seal all tops with about a minimum of 2 coats. For a dresser like this, I sealed it with 4 coats of top coat. And there's the dresser all finished. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you'll give us a like and a follow. And again, this is Janet Perez with the Painted Saguaro with Paint Couture Paints. And I appreciate you watching. Hope you'll come back again and watch us some more. Thanks for watching.